Welcome to this special Neuro Ninja video, all focused on World Mental Health Day 2023. And the aim for this year's Mental Health Day is that mental health is a universal human right available to everyone. So as you know, our focus is about helping people become Neuro Ninjas this year, next year, every year, for all of us living in our brains to begin to manage our well-being, our mood, our mind, unleash learning and help ourselves grow and develop in perpetuity. Look at this amazing bit of kit, the best bit of kit you will ever own. Being a Neuro Ninja means developing the skills to be the best version of ourselves every day. The brain is built to survive and thrive, grow, change and learn, and our experiences inside our brain, let's be honest, are not always positive. We always say, hopefully, with energy and passion and enthusiasm, you've got everything you need at the top of your neck. And our mission is to help you make it work for you in a positive way. And if you're listening to this thinking, yeah, okay, fine, but I've heard all that stuff before, this doesn't really make a difference. It absolutely does. There are thousands and thousands of Neuro Ninjas. This stuff will change your life if you let it, across 170 schools, across 15 international businesses, across thousands of people. This stuff changes your life if you let it, because it works with the neuroscience. It works with where we are in our understanding of this incredibly complex organ, the most complicated piece of matter in the known universe. Because if you change your brain, you change your mind, and then you change what is possible in your world. So in this special video, we're going to focus on these 4 packets. Just like the brain exchanges information in packets of electricity across the different networks in the brain, we're going to explore the fact we live in an ever-changing brain matrix. We change our minds, our lives are our great work, and that mental flexibility via well-being and mind management are the fonts that release us, give us the opportunity to grow and develop, and they are ever refilling fonts of possibility and opportunity. So we live in an ever-changing matrix. We are all brain shapers every single day. It happens by accident or it happens by design, and let's be honest, it happens in both ways. Neuro Ninjas understand that we're brain shapers and that we need to learn to manage our daily behaviors, our relationships and our minds. And what we do every day is the message we send to our brain and body about how to change, grow and develop. Our brain applies this basic principle to everything. Use it or lose it. If you use these circuits, the brain will strengthen whatever information is being held there and keep it. If you don't use that information, the brain will repurpose those circuits. And that actually applies across our body. Our body and brain work together to apply this use it or lose it principle. So our brains and our minds change every day because we have experiences. We learn and we change and we grow. And what shapes our brain are 4 psychosocial forces. Now, they shape our brain by accident, but being a Neuro Ninja means we can deliberately do that. We can deliberately decide to improve our well-being. We can deliberately decide to engage in behaviors that support our mind management. We can deliberately decide to improve our learning and work with our brain's memory system. Because our brain works like this. Whatever we get our brain and body to do, if we do those things repeatedly, our brain and body make it easier for us to do that thing, regardless of whether we like that thing or not. So if we practice the guitar, we get better at guitar. If we practice a foreign language, we get better at a foreign language. If we practice overthinking and worrying, we get better at overthinking and worrying. If we train our brain on short 30-second TikTok videos, our attention shrinks to be 30 seconds long. Our brain is shaped by experiences. It is neurally plastic throughout our lives. These are biological wires called neurons. There are 86 billion in your head. The neuron on the left is learning something for the first time. The neuron on the right is involved in a habit or a bit of learning that brain has repeated many times. So you've got a much faster connection from 2 miles an hour on the left to 240 miles an hour on the right. That action potential, 2 milliamps moving down that axon. The one on the right, as you can see, has got myelin around it, insulation, squeezed there by Schwann cells that are glial cells that support the neuron. So our brain changes every single day, and when our brain changes, we change. So we are shaping our brain, and that is the clear, undiluted message from neuroscience. Our brain changes, particularly the area at the front of the brain. And neurons that wire together fire together, creating patterns of firing that repeatedly connect and communicate and create across our brain meta-stable states of coordination and activation. What does meta-stability mean? Basically, in a dynamic, fast-moving system, think of 86 billion neurons connected in 300 trillion ways, with chemicals and electricity building those connections. Stability or meta-stability emerges from that complicated network in a dynamic and fast-moving system as the brain settles into patterns of firing. What decides those patterns of firing? The experiences that our brain is having. Just like a weather system, our brain can develop different particular ways of firing and responding. Just like a system like weather, it is complex and it is not always easy to predict how that system is going to fire, just in the same way it's not always easy to predict the way a cloud is going to form. At the highest level of connection and communication across our brain, our personalities emerged, boundaried by the relationships with our families, our habits, our goals, our relationships with ourselves. Our sense of ourselves, that sense of consciousness, 5% of our brain's experience is conscious, and what's conscious moves in and out of consciousness all of the time, depending on what we're doing. Our sense of ourselves is an emergent property, comes out of the brain, and the experience is constantly changing because it's sensitive to initial conditions. So it's never exactly the same. But our brain builds these meta-stable states. They might be short-lived. They might be a bad mood for a while. They might be longer-lived, some aspect of our personality. And our personality grows and develops throughout our lives and constantly changes as a result of interactions between the way our brain is wired. We might be neurally diverse, for example. We might have ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. We might have ASC, autistic spectrum condition. We might be more neurally typical, although brain wiring is individual for each person. Our specific wiring links with the social and psychological world around us, and the brain falls into patterns of firing linked to our relationships with our caregivers, our parents and our carers, linked to the way we learn to regulate ourselves, linked to the biological state of our system, how much sleep we've had, whether we've eaten or not, linked to the ongoing habits and habitual patterns of thinking, reacting and responding that occur in our brains. Our brain builds our mind like a projector throwing up an image. A very simple example would be that concept of hangry. We're angry because we're hungry. That is affecting the metastable pattern firing across our brain. So we, as the only animal on the planet with a brain big enough to understand this, can change our brains. Our brain is a learning machine. It looks for patterns and begins to build models of the world from similarities it finds in the incoming data. This begins, first of all, with physical phenomena like light and sound. In the early period of the baby's growth, it is trying to decode light and sound and build models of the world. And that process of learning about the incoming data continues through our psychological and social development as relationships bring more information in from the world. And it continues as we grow up through cultural information, through the stuff we see in videos, the stuff we read, the stuff we write. Our brain is neurally plastic, and that neural plasticity might change on the basis of which circuits are processing which bits of information. For example, early in life, the visual circuits are learning about how light works, and early in life, babies can't see very much of the world. Slowly but surely, it comes into focus. Because light doesn't change, the circuits at the back of the brain that decode it might settle into a connected network quite quickly. They don't need to remain massively neurally plastic. the circuits that process light, because light doesn't really change. This is a view of what a baby might see. That process of training the circuits at the back of the eye and the occipital lobe might take 12 months for them to learn all the different features of light. Throughout our lives, the front of our brain is shaped by what we do, how we're treated by those around us, how we think about ourselves, and what goals are driving us forward. We are sculpting our brains. Think about those 4 psychosocial forces in your life. Are they in a good space? Are they positive? Are your habits positive? Are your relationships with friends and family positive? Is your relationship with yourself positive? Do you have positive goals driving yourself forward? Score yourself out of 6. 6 is positive, 0 is not so positive. We need to build up those psychosocial forces. We can use them to shape our brains. The last part of our brain to mature is the prefrontal cortex. The little strip of tissue at the front of our forehead is where our self-image, our personality, our thinking about ourselves is. That's where we cognitively and emotionally reason. Whatever we think drives how we feel, and whatever we feel drives how we think. The patterns in someone else's brain can help or hinder changes in our own brain. So as you grow up, you meet new people with different ideas. They stretch and broaden the capabilities of your brain to think about different things. You might meet people with negative values that don't reflect your own values. That might affect the way your brain fires. You might meet toxic people that behave in unhelpful, damaging and nasty ways. That will affect the way your brain fires. Our brain is very vulnerable to relationships around us. Relationships can affirm us, relationships can damage us. We emerge each day from the firing patterns of that globally connected network, creating both the opportunities and barriers to change, growth and development. So if you think about our stability in our brain, those meta-stable patterns, and think about it like a balloon floating in the sky. And if you think, actually, if we don't have good habits, if we're not treated well by others, if we don't think positively about ourselves, and if we don't have goals driving us forward, the stability of that balloon can change. So we haven't got good habits, we're not getting good sleep, we're not managing our exercise, we're not looking after ourselves, we're not in positive relationships that affirm us, we're not in a positive space thinking about ourselves, and we haven't got goals. We are in an unstable brain that is in a difficult space, not building mental flexibility, not supporting itself. There are 2 types of people in our lives. There are drains that might suck the light out of us, who aren't positive and supportive. We need to edit the drains out of our life. Or we need radiators, people that support us, affirm us, look after us. Our brain is incredibly linked to other brains. It relies on other brains to support it as well. So ask yourself this question: what is important to you? Is popularity important or being real important? We would say 1,000,000 times over, be yourself, be real. Our lives are our great work. We get 30,000 days on planet Earth. Being a Neuro-Ninja enables you to use those days to build a deep awareness of how you can move your life forward, support others, achieve your goals, reach contentment, progress, and personal growth. If you think of our lives like a magnum opus, our great work, each day is either a symphony arising from a well-managed mind, and we looked at balance in the mind just now, or it can be a cacophony. If you remember that our brain is a team of rivals brain, there are different circuits with different strengths, and they've got different jobs. And balance in the body and the brain builds mental flexibility, and that arises from both positive physical and mental health, carefully selected habits, but also supportive and benign psychosocial forces. Poor mental health arises from a body and brain out of balance. Now, it may be out of balance for many, many reasons. Some of those we might be able to control, our well-being habits. Some of them we may not be able to control, the behaviour of other people in our lives, for example. We get a cacophony or we get a symphony. Resilience is a balance in the brain where the structures of communication and coordination between the different networks are in balance, and we slide forward in life in balance. Reactivity and responsiveness need to be in balance too. If we're too rigid in our brain, we get stuck and dysregulated. If we're too distracted, we get a chaotic brain where we're not able to concentrate. We need to be in balance, and that balance arises from ongoing well-being behaviours and careful management and calibration of our response through metacognition. So what we need to build is mental flexibility, the ability to change those meta-stable states as life changes, because the only certainty in life is change. We need to be able to flex our thinking and our responses to the ever-changing circumstances we find ourselves. Positive mental health is about that ability to flex and respond and manage those 4 psychosocial forces. We can do that flexibility by supporting the physical creation of new neurons in our brain. Hippocampal neurogenesis, the hippocampus deep in the middle of the brain, is involved in emotion and mood and learning and memory. Hippocampuses make 700 neurons a day in a healthy brain. That is the site of mental flexibility. Those new cells help us regulate our emotions and our moods, help us build memory, help us integrate new learning, help us flex our responses in the face of change. So how do we build that mental flexibility? The first place to begin every day is our rocks of well-being. Remember, we emerge from our brain's operation. These 12 rocks are incredibly powerful, and for Mental Health Awareness Day we have made a brand new poster with QR codes for every single rock. Every single rock is explained in terms of the neuroscience, why you should do it, and examples of what you should do, how you can improve each of those rocks. So you can build and improve your sleep. Look at what it does. It builds resilience, encodes memory, cleans our brain, reduces anxiety. Exercise grows new brain cells. Eating healthily supports gut health, reduces inflammation, build resilience. Mindfulness enables us to manage our brain from the top of the brain. Mind wandering enables us to come up with solutions, improves our creativity, helps us manage our worry. It's so important to manage our emotion. Emotional pain can reduce our cognitive bandwidth. It supports a building of self-compassion and self-awareness. Walking outside immediately boosts our mood. Listening to music supports us to process emotion, improves our motivation. Connecting with others increases our empathy, helps boost our confidence and compassion. Making sure we're being kind and grateful balances the natural negative biases of some circuits in the brain, helps us build perspective, enabling us to do what we love, exciting and enthralling our brain, engaging, energizing and building resilience. And finally, enabling our brain to strut its cognitive stuff each day, doing some learning, some playing, some creating and some reading. So at the end of this Mental Health Awareness Day video, focus on those 12 rocks of well-being to build flexible metastable states across your brain that enable you to be the best version of yourself. You can change your brain, you can change your mind, you can change your world.